We do today want to turn to the book of Isaiah. We will be in Isaiah chapter 66. But throughout the book of Isaiah, God is brought before us and presented to us. He is referred to as, in the book, as Lord, as the God of Israel, as the God of Jacob, as the God of all the earth, as the Lord of hosts, as the Lord your God, as the shepherd, as the potter, the Holy One, the everlasting God, the Creator, the Redeemer, the King, the Savior, the Rock, the Maker, the Mighty One of Jacob, the Father, the Most High. In addition to these titles throughout the book, there is the use of metaphors to depict the character of God. Throughout the book, we just see the glory of God. And this is one of the greatest needs of God's people today, to see the greatness and the glory of God. We'd like today to read in Isaiah 66, and we want to read verse 1. Isaiah 66 and verse 1. Thus saith the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that ye build unto me? And where is the place of my rest? Notice the opening words are, Thus saith the Lord. Thus saith the Lord. A phrase that ought to get our immediate and utmost attention. Thus saith the Lord. It is a phrase that rings forth and takes precedence over everything else that is going on. In our text, it is introductory to the fact that God is speaking. Reading what follows, you will notice that there are four personal pronouns, God referring to himself. My, me, my. So God is speaking, and the subject matter is himself. The fact that God is speaking, of course, ought to grab our attention. And the fact that he is speaking concerning himself, which is the greatest subject of all matters, ought also to have our attention. I pray that God has our attention. Thus saith the Lord. And then hear God say, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What a statement. And this is followed by a question from him, where is the house that ye build unto me? And where is the place of my rest? With a question, he is saying, I am not man, nor am I anything like man. So what we read here in our text is a God declaration of his splendor, of his magnificence. With those words, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. The Lord paints a picture of himself. With those words, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool, the Lord produces an image of himself. He does this for our understanding. He does this for our comprehension of himself. Jesus declared in John 4:24, God is spirit. As such, he is invisible. And 1 Timothy 1 verse 17 declares him to be invisible. Now unto the King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God, be honor and glory forever and ever. So God is a spirit, God is invisible, yet all through the Word of God, parts of the human body are attributed to him. We must understand that these are figurative in order that we can better understand and comprehend God. The Bible speaks of his face. to represent his presence, his favor, and goodwill, and the manifestation of his love and grace. The Bible speaks of his eyes to signify his omniscience and all-seeing providence. The Bible speaks of his ears representing his readiness to hear his people, and speaks of his arms and hands indicative of his power. The Bible speaks of his wings to represent his protection and his care. Again, these are all word pictures so that you and I can have some understanding of God. Our text, "The heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool," is also a word picture as well, illustrating the immensity of God. Hear God say, "The heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool." And see and feel the hugeness of God. Hear God say, "The heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool," and try to grasp his vastness, his massiveness, his enormity, his greatness. Our subject this morning is a portrait of the immensity of God. A portrait of the immensity of God. So let's look at the portrait that is before us in these words. "The heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool." Those words illustrate for you and I the vastness, the extensiveness, the enormity, the immeasurableness, the infinity, the significance, the prominence, the distinction, and the greatness of God. Hear God say, "The heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool." This is an image of amazing magnificence and the solemn, awe-inspiring majesty of God. Again, "The heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool." With these words, a word picture is created. Again, in this picture, God is the leading idea. God is the focus. "The heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool." So again, in this, we see God is being illustrated. God is being declared. We see the greatness of God. What is declared here by God was acknowledged by Solomon at the completion and the dedication of the temple in 1 Kings chapter 8. Following God's glory filling the temple, we read in 1 Kings 8:22 that Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the congregation of Israel and spread forth his hands toward heaven. And then we read in verse 27 of 1 Kings chapter 8, as part of his prayer, that he said, "Behold, the heaven and heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have builded." He is thinking and speaking of the immensity of God. And as he speaks those words, "The heaven and heaven of heavens cannot contain thee," no doubt his heart is overwhelmed with humility and wonder and amazement and reverence and praise and worship. And as we hear God say, "The heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool," all the humility and the wonder and the amazement and the reverence and praise and worship that ought to overflow in our souls. Hear God say, "See the picture. The heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool." In this we find tremendous encouragement. There's great strength and assurance and confidence. So again, a word picture is being painted. In this picture, there is heaven. and there is earth. The distance between these two, heaven and earth, is humanly inconceivable. The moon, the nearest celestial body to earth, on average is 238,900 miles from the earth. But the heaven that God is speaking of goes beyond that. The sun, the closest star to the earth, is approximately 93 million miles from earth. But the heaven that God is speaking of is beyond that. The next nearest star to the earth is 25 trillion miles from the earth. That's 25 with 12 zeros. But the heaven that God is speaking of goes beyond that. Again, the sun is about 93 million miles from Earth. The planet Pluto is 40 times further. But the heaven that God is speaking of is beyond that. Within our Milky Way galaxy, there are between 200 and 400 billion stars. And some of those stars are 60,000 light years from us. A light year being about 6 trillion miles. But the heaven that God is speaking of is beyond that. And far beyond the Milky Way are other galaxies. And beyond those, still more. But the heaven that God is speaking of goes beyond all of that. So again, hear God say, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. This is a picture of what is inconceivable. Oh, the hugeness of God. Oh, the vastness, the massiveness, the enormity of God. Oh, how immeasurable our God is. Secondly, in this picture, there is a throne. You have heaven, you have earth, and there is a throne. He says, the heaven is my throne. That is a picture of rule. In this picture, the heaven is my throne. We see God exalted high above the earth. We read in Psalm 47 and verse 9 that he is greatly exalted. And in Isaiah 33 verse 5, the Lord is exalted, for he dwelleth on high. Hear God say, the heaven is my throne. And know that what we have here is a picture of an inconceivable exaltation. Hear God say, the heaven is my throne, and see him. He's reigning. And like a trumpet blast, we read in 1 Chronicles 16:31, Psalm 93:1, Psalm 96:10, Psalm 97:1, Psalm 99:1. The Lord reigneth. The Lord reigneth. It is present tense. It is ongoing. It is a statement that he reigns continually. The Lord reigneth. That is never not so. The Lord reigneth. This is not passive. This is active. It is a statement that he actively reigns. Notice in that statement, the Lord reigneth, there are no qualifying words establishing boundaries or designated areas where he reigns. It is a statement of absolute reign. The psalmist declared in Psalm 103:19, the Lord hath prepared his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom ruleth over all. Come what may, his throne is fixed, his throne is set, his throne is secure. He exercises dominion. He is absolute sovereign in every realm. The Lord reigneth. Now hear him declare, the heaven is my throne. He is the absolute authority above and over all and superior to all. Again, hear God say, the heaven is my throne. He rules. He's in control. He manages all things. He directs all things. He guides all things. He governs all things. And he does so majestically and powerfully and eternally and triumphantly. We read in Isaiah 14:24, the Lord of hosts, a phrase that occurs over 200 times, referring to the stellar host, the animal host, the angelic host, the demonic host, and the human host. The Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand. Hear God say, the heaven is my throne, and know that the God that we read of in this book is quite different from the God that many profess. A God who created everything by personal and direct action and yet cannot regulate the works of his own hands. The God that's presented in this book is quite different from the God declared in most pulpits. A God who rules and reigns over nothing and is a mere spectator hoping that all things turn out well. But the God that is declared in this book is nothing like the God declared from most pulpits today, a God who's filled with benevolent intentions, yet he's unable to carry them out. A subject, they present him as a subject to the whims of man, a mere puppet with man pulling the strings. But the God presented in this book worketh all things after the counsel of his own will. The God that is declared in this book cannot be reduced so that man can manage him and cannot be flattered or bribed. Notice in our text that it is not my throne is in heaven, but what it says is the heaven is my throne. Thirdly, we have here a picture. In the picture, there is a footstool. The heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. The word footstool is exactly what it sounds like, a stool for the feet. It is that which is underneath. Again, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. It is a picture of God's sovereignty, and all else is underneath. You take all the uprisings, all the strivings, all the contendings, all the opposition, all the defiance of man and the world against God. And no matter what form these may take, no matter where these may come from, no matter how widespread, no matter how powerful, intense it might be, and no matter how often repeated, hear God say, the earth is my footstool. Hear God say, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. And see him as the Most High, towering above all, the prevailing one. In this picture, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. God is incomparably and inconceivably above the earth, and everything is subservient to him. Fourthly, in this picture, God is the owner. Notice what it says. The heaven is my throne. The heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Again, the distance between heaven and earth is inconceivable, and God owns it all. It's all his, and it's all his to do with it as he pleases. Fifthly, in this picture, we see that God fills all. Again, think of the inconceivable distance between heaven and earth. And then think of the fact that God fills it all. The psalmist declared in Psalm 139 and verse 8, if I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. God there. Let that sink in. God there. And in Jeremiah 23 and 24, we hear God ask this question. Can any hide himself in secret places that I shall not see him? Do not I fill heaven and the earth? God is not only there, he fills there. Again, think of the inconceivable distance between heaven and earth. And yes, God is there, but he fills there. Whatever else might be there, he fills there. This Paul illustrates the fact that God is beyond measurement. God is beyond comprehension. Notice in the book of Job, chapter 11, the book of Job, chapter 11, we want to read verses 7 through verse 9. Job 11, verses 7 through verse 9. Canst thou by searching find out God? Canst thou find out the Almighty unto perfection? It is as high as heaven. It is as high as heaven. What canst thou do? Deeper than hell. What canst thou know? The measure thereof is longer than the earth, and broader than the sea. Again, hear God say, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Oh, what a picture. Oh, what a picture. Now we want to consider this portrait. The heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. We want to consider it in the light of who God is. He is creator. He is sustainer of all. And we hear him declare in Isaiah 66 and verse 2, for all these things hath mine hand made, and all these things have been. And then we hear him say, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. He is the creator, and he is the sustainer of all. He is eternal. He is immutable. He is what he was, and will always be what he was and is. The God of yesterday is the God of today, and the God of today is the God of tomorrow, and the God of the past is the God of the present, and the God of the present is the God of the future. And we hear him say, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. He is almighty. He has all power. He has all might. His power reaches to all things. The God who placed the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxies, and the planets in the sky by merely speaking is a God who can. The God who created the mind-boggling distances of the stars. He's an able God. The God who created the seas and the oceans and the lakes and the rivers and the streams by merely speaking is a God who can. The God who took the dust of the ground and formed man is a God who can. The God who makes the sun to rise and makes the sun to set, and who sends the wind and the rain and the snow and the hail and causes the grass and plants to grow is a God who can. And we hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. He's all-knowing. He's all-sufficient. He's always everywhere present. He's holy. He's loving. He's gracious. He's merciful. He's long-suffering. He's good. He's faithful. He never fails. He never falters. What man does or does not do does not affect the faithfulness of God. We read in 2 Timothy 2, verse 13, if we believe not, yet he abideth faithful. He always is who he is. And with that in mind, hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. He fills everything. And as he fills everything, he is who he is. Everything that he is fills heaven and earth. This speaks of his greatness. And oh, may we be caught up in the wonder of the psalmist. Psalm 77:13, we hear him say, who is so great as our God? And in Psalm 95:3, for the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods. And in Psalm 145:3, great is the Lord. His greatness is unsearchable. Jesus said in John 10, verse 29, my Father is greater than all. And hear God say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. And know that no matter what the situation, no matter what the circumstance, no matter the magnitude of your problems, your trials, your difficulties, your impossibilities, your needs, your burdens, your infirmities, no matter how big your giant, the Lord your God excels all. He is our Father. And we hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. He is our portion. Psalm 16:5, the Lord is the portion of mine inheritance. And I hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. I read in Psalm 66:2 that he only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. And I hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. He is my habitation. He is my strong tower. He's my refuge, my hiding place, my fortress, my sanctuary. And as such, I hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. He is my shield. He is my shepherd, my king. And the heaven is his throne and the earth is his footstool. All the greatness of our God. In a world where there's storm and danger and trouble and traps and bondage and entanglements and corruption and threats and fear and harm and death and ruin and wickedness and vileness and corruption and infestation and affliction and enemies, there is God. And I hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. In a world of sorrows, in a world of heartaches, in a world of overwhelming trials and pressures and temptations, in a world of battles and struggles and hindrances and barriers and obstacles, there is God. And I hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. Everywhere we turn, there are pressing and desperate situations. Everywhere we turn, there's that which is broken and shattered. There are ruins and upheaval and chaos and failure and defeat, and discouragement, torment, misery, distress, insurmountable problems and needs. But there is God. And I hear him say, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. We do not know what giants we may have to face, but we do know that there is no giant comparable to the one who says, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. And in him I can trust, I can confide in, I can lean upon. I can walk with him. I can talk with him. I can go with him. Oh, the wonder of our God. Believe him. Trust him. Depend upon him. Lean upon him. This will give you courage. This will give you strength. This will comfort your heart. This will fill your life with gladness. Oh, that our lives would coincide with what we profess to believe about God. Again, when I have read in our text, God is speaking. Oh, that we might hear him say these words today. The heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Oh, may we see him today reigning with all subservient to him.